Hey gang, I promised you predictions on the Guild Awards, and I am meeting that promise. We are going to talk today about Directors Guild Association, Producers Guild Association, and the Writers Guild Association. Two of those awards are this evening. Yes, I'm recording this on Saturday, February 8th. So we've got DGA and PGA tonight. I don't know exactly what time. I think that they'll be able to be watched on YouTube or like on their direct website. WGA, however, is not until February 15th, but I want to get it talked about. And you know what? We are talking about this, obviously, post Critics' Choice Awards, which I haven't done my reaction video except for my amazing Substance short, which I'm going to link up here for you guys to watch because, man, am I stoked. But we're going to talk about when these votings ended, if the controversy of Amelia Perez is going to affect them, and then I will hopefully be able to make my reactions video later. But you know what, guys? Let's get right into these Guild Awards, and we're going to do them in alphabetical order. So we're going to start with the Directors Guild Association. Now, this voting did not end actually until last night, but it did end last night before the Critics' Choice Awards, so obviously no impact there. However, the whole Carla Sofia Gascon could have an impact, like that whole controversy could potentially have had an impact, though honestly, I don't think it did because I don't think Jacques Audiard was ever going to win the DGA. I just don't think that, given the other controversy that existed before these tweets, that Jacques Audiard was kind of in this running. Now, usually, and we all know I love statistics, statistics say that the DGA, most of the time, like literally in the last 15 times, they've only gotten it wrong 4 times, meaning that usually whoever they pick for DGA goes on to win both director and then their movie wins Best Picture. Well, the most recent time that didn't happen was in 2022 when DGA ended up giving the award to Jane Campion for The Power of the Dog. However, Best Picture that year went to Coda. The saddest part about all that is that Coda's director, Sian Heder, I believe that's how you say it. I'm probably screwing it up, you know, me and my Midwest accent. But she didn't even get nominated for a DGA. So they kind of, you know, blew the pooch on that one. But, you know, whatever, most of the time they are right. So they nominate 5 directors just like the Oscars do. So let's look at who they nominated, and then I will give you my picks in order. So the nominees for director of a theatrical feature film. So remember, this wouldn't be their first feature film because we'll talk about that category next. So they've directed something before, but all 5 of these directors have never been nominated for a DGA previously. So the nominees are Jacques Audiard for Amelia Perez, Sean Baker for Anora, Edward Berger for Conclave, Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, James Mangold for A Complete Unknown. Most of those, right spot on. Like, honestly, when this all happened, the biggest shocker, and I still think it's a shocker to me, is the whole James Mangold, A Complete Unknown. Like, I don't know. I mean, I get it. It's a celebrity musical biopic, but he's done it before. He did it with Walk the Line, and he didn't get nominated for that. So I don't know what exactly the Directors Guild saw in A Complete Unknown that, like, they didn't see in, oh, I don't know, say, Corley Farjat for The Substance. Or even, I mean, let's be honest, we all knew that DGA was never going to nominate John Chu. Like, John M. Chu in his past movies with, like, Gem and the Holograms and The Step-Ups and even the Now You See Me kind of, you know, 2 of them, soon to be a 3rd one. Like, they weren't going to nominate him, but you seriously put James Mangold over him? But that's fine, whatever. Right now, if I had to pick, and obviously I do, I don't think Jacques Audiard ever had a chance. Like, to me, this one comes down to Edward Berger for Conclave, which, by the way, the Oscars completely snubbed Berger, which I still don't understand that one. I mean, Conclave is a fabulous movie, and he did an excellent job with it. But to me, DGA, it's coming down to Brady Corbet for The Brutalist or Edward Berger for Conclave. And I guess, you know, given when the voting ended and, you know, Brady Corbet did win at the Golden Globes, I think the edge does go to Corbet. So I've got him winning. And then to me, I think Sean Baker for Anora rises above Jacques Audiard for Amelia Perez. And then down on the bottom of my list is obviously James Mangold for A Complete Unknown. The next category, I'm not going to get into a lot of discussion with. I mean, I think it's pretty clear who's going to win this, but Let's go through the Kyle Capati, All We Imagine Is Light, Megan Park for My Old Ass, Ramel Ross for Nickel Boys, Hafidun Ulman Tandil for Armand, and Sean Wang for Didi. Out of these 5 nominees, 4 of them are first-time DGA nominated people. Now you might wonder, like, how's that possible? Because I thought this was first-time feature film. It is for feature film. So Ramel Ross is actually a previous DGA nominee in 2019 for his documentary, Hale County, This Morning, This Evening. He didn't win it, but he has been nominated before. I also think, given the critics' acclaim and love for Nickel Boys compared to all of these other films, it's a shoo-in that it's Ramel Ross. The only one who even would come close to him would be Kyle Capati for All We Imagine Is Light. If you do recall, she was nominated in the director category for the Golden Globes. However, didn't win. And her international feature film, as great as it is, it's been losing to Amelia Perez. Will it still going forward after the controversy? I think that her movie now stands a chance. However, that's right, it's not up for international feature film at the Oscars because India screwed up. So I can't stress that enough, how badly India screws up on their selections, but whatever. DGA does also give out an award for Best Director for a documentary. And I like to cover all of the categories that somehow have a similar category in the Oscars. So you know what? And I love documentaries. So let's discuss it. And to give you guys a little bit of facts when it comes to how the DGA does when they pick documentary, right? I mean, we talked about how they do when they pick theatrical feature, which has better stats than the documentary does. In the last 10 years, the DGA documentary winner has only went on to win the Oscar 3 times. So could this be a year where they get it right? I'm thinking so, but I don't know. Let me know your guys' opinions on this category. So the nominees for Best Director of a Documentary, and I'm only going to give the documentary name because I would slaughter the actual director's name. So the movies where the directors are up for Best Director of a Documentary are Porcelain War, Sugarcane, Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat, Hollywood Gate, and Daughters. Out of those 5 nominees, 3 of them are nominated for an Oscar, and that would be Porcelain War, Sugarcane, and Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat. All right, we had a light go out, a little bit of technical difficulties, but we'll continue on. So I've got winning in this category Porcelain Wars. I'm pretty much going to pick Porcelain War, I feel, for the other guild ones and for the Oscars because, well, my Oscar pick, Once Upon a Time in Ukraine, didn't even make the nomination list, so I kind of lost big time on that one. Now, my second place choice, though, the one that I could see potentially winning this one, isn't one of the other Oscar nominees. It is Daughters. Like I said, Daughters has been getting critical acclaim out there, and I am still shocked it didn't make the Oscar list, but, a lot of good documentaries this year. Not everything could make it, so I've got Daughters coming in at number 2. Number 3, I do have Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat. Even though it's over 2 hours of a documentary, it's about music. People have really been liking it. And then at 4, I've got Sugarcane, with 5 being Hollywood Gate. Not like it really matters what order it is, because if I don't get the first place right, I'm still a loser, and my competition still makes me sad because I lost. But that's who I've got coming in. So again, to recap, I've got theatrical feature film going to Brady Corbet for The Brutalist. I've got first-time director going to Ramel Ross for Nickel Boys, and documentary going to Porcelain War. Let's get into the other one that is this evening, and that is the Producers Guild Award. So this is voted on by producers. So those are the people who make the money, who end up when Best Picture wins. You always wondered, why doesn't the director go up there right away? Well, unless the director is also the producer, they don't actually get the trophy. The producer does. So the Producers Guild voting did end on January 30th. Now, January 30th was the last day they could get in. So most people obviously voted before that time frame. So none of the Amelia Perez controversy at all impacted it, right? I mean, the first kind of article out there didn't even drop until January 30th about the whole Carla Sofia Gascon tweets. So whatever controversy or dislike of Amelia Perez they had was from all the controversy before the tweets. I mean, let's be honest, Amelia Perez has gotten controversy pretty much its entire theatrical run. I mean, between not being filmed in Mexico, not really having Mexican actors. I mean, you have a director who can't, I'm digressing. We will talk about all that in my Carla Sofia Gascon video. So make sure you like and subscribe and click the little bell to get notified, because I do want to drop that video. And we're going to be talking about it in a little bit different light than most people. But the Producers Guild was created in 1989. So that would have been for like the 1990 Oscars. So they've been around for 45 Oscar seasons, right? And they've only been wrong 10 times. That means 35 times the PGA has picked the best Oscar winner. However, in the last 10 years, they've gotten it wrong 3 times. So to me, that means they're getting a little worse. Or could it be that all of our seasons have just been kind of unpredictable, with this being one of the most unpredictable seasons I have ever seen? And mind you, I've been watching the Oscars since like I was old enough to understand TV and watch it. So we're talking like before 10 years old. I mean, thanks parents for like getting me hooked on binge watching before binge watching was a thing. But, the PGA has also tried to assimilate itself a little bit to be more like the Oscars. I believe it was in like 2009 when they actually upped their number of nominees from 5 to 10. So just like Best Picture. And they actually do use preferential ballot voting, just like the Oscars do. Since the PGA is so much like the Oscars, and if we think about it, I mean, really only being wrong 10 out of 45 times, that's a pretty good ratio, right? I mean, my cousin would tell me, Lisa, you should know math better, but he'd be able to throw out some statistic, whatever. But, in this crazy, unpredictable award season that we're having, maybe this becomes one of the years they get it wrong, or maybe they get it right. I don't know. Here are the nominees for Best Picture: Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, A Real Pain, September 5, The Substance, and Wicked. Now, what I'm about to show you is my rank order that I put on the Awards Expert app, which if you guys don't have it, go to the Google Play Store and download it. It's great. And then you follow me and I'll follow you, and then we can kind of see how we do. I also love it because it's totally up my competition wheelhouse. But here we go. And mind you, I have not updated this since January 12th. I'm not going to touch it. And so here it is. Yep. I do have Anora winning. I've had Anora winning this one since obviously January 12th. So, we have to also think about this voting ended long before the Critics' Choice. But I did go with Anora despite what people are going to say, and that is, PGA tends not to go down the indie kind of route. They tend to vote more like popular. They don't really take on the hard topics, which, like we've said, Nora being about a sex worker, how much do they really want to award that? But it's about the producers, and it's about being able to make a great film with the resources that you have. And I mean, let's be honest, Sean Baker made this film on $6 million. Now, that is not to discount the fact that, Brady Corbet made The Brutalist, a 3.5-hour film, on $10 million. But to me, I just think Anora ends up taking this, with potentially maybe The Brutalist being the one to beat it. But honest to God, I think if anything's going to beat it, I've got Wicked beating it. I understand that, The Brutalist has won awards, they're critically acclaimed, right? I think we have to remember that this is the Producers Guild Association, and so we do have to think about things like critically acclaimed, like what they're able to do with the movie. And Wicked did a fabulous job in part 1 of 2. I mean, in 2 hours, 40 minutes, they did amazing work. And if you're not going to recognize the director, which the DGA didn't, maybe they'll recognize the producer. So I do have Wicked at number 2. I have The Brutalist at number 3. If we do look at where the PGA has gotten it wrong the 3 times out of the last 10 years, I definitely could end up, egg on my face again, eating my words, and it could be The Brutalist. In 2016, PGA went with The Big Short, and the movie that won that year was Spotlight. Then in 2017, PGA picked La La Land. The Oscar went to Moonlight. Well, first it went to La La Land, then to Moonlight. Love that whole mix up. But most recently, it happened in, of course, the year where all of the upsets seemed to happen, and that was in 2020 when they went with 1917 and the Oscar went to Parasite. So I get it. Parasite wasn't really like an independent movie, but it was a foreign movie. So maybe that's why PGA didn't go for it, which is why most people are saying you've got no chance in hell, Lisa, that Anora is going to win the PGA. But I gotta believe that all of the critical acclaim that has happened before for Anora and how much hype it got. Yes, it didn't win a single thing at the Golden Globes. I get that. But we have to think voting bodies. So Yep. I'm going to stick with Anora. I'm not changing it. It's been that way since January 12th, so that's my lockdown. And then coming in at 4, 5, and 6, you can see those. I've got, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Dune Part 2, just because I think that those movies are out there. Not saying that I don't think Conclave should be kind of higher on my list, but when it comes to this, 4 is as high as they're going to get. So that's my 10. Now we're going to get into the other category that PGA does, which is animated feature film. Remember how I've said that like almost every awards show has picked the same 5 animated feature films for all of their nominations? Well, not PGA. Of course, they had to kind of go out and be different. So their nominees for animated feature film are Flow, Inside Out 2, Moana 2, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and The Wild Robot. The one that they left off was Memoir of a Snail. Now, maybe that's because it's R-rated. I don't know. So they put in the widely popular, like crazy popular Disney movie, Moana 2. To me, no, that doesn't stand a chance. Like, I've got that coming in at number 5. And this breaks my heart, and my cat Dak is already mad at me that I'm not going with my heart. But you know what? I went with my heart last night on the Critics' Choice and picking Flow for animated feature, and The Wild Robot ended up winning. And as I had to explain to Dak, we have to look at the history of the PGA when it comes to animated feature film. And almost predominantly, they always pick the widely popular kind of blockbuster talked about movies. Now, if you go with that rationale and what do they consider blockbuster, well, then you'd have to go Inside Out 2 because that's made more money than like anything under the sun. I mean, over $1 billion, it's beat Frozen, everything. But when I say widely popular, I mean like box office, but also critical acclaim. I mean, how many of you were seeing previews for The Wild Robot saying it's the best animated feature of the year, and this might even be the one of the few animated features that actually gets in Best Picture for Oscars? So, and given what we saw at Critics' Choice, even though, this voting ended before Critics' Choice last night, but I think we've got to go Wild Robot for the win here, even though the upset could be Flow. I mean, I picked Wild Robot for Golden Globes, and then Flow ended up winning. And Flow, it's not that I don't love you, I just have to get something right. So, you know what? That's who I've got winning, the Wild Robot. Then Flow, then Inside Out 2, then Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, just because Wallace and Gromit, usually in a normal kind of year of animated features, they do very well. And then at 5th, I have Moana 2. The last category that we've got for PGA is they do give out a documentary award. When we're talking statistics for PGA and documentary, they don't have a great track record when it comes to matching the Oscars. I mean, in the last 10 years, they've only matched 4 times. And this is definitely a year in which I think they are going to differ. I mean, there's only one of their 6 nominees that's even on the Oscar list. And like I said, I don't think the other 5 made the short list. So the nominees for Outstanding Producer of a Documentary are Gaucho Gaucho, Medita, Mountain Queen, The Summits of Lakpa Sherpa, Porcelain War, Superman, The Christopher Reeve Story, We Will Dance Again. You know that Porcelain War is the one that made the Oscar list. And you know what? Like, I would normally pick it. Like I said, well, actually, now I'm contradicting myself because when we did DGA, I said I was probably going to pick Porcelain War for every Guild Award coming forward, but I just can't in this case, and that's because when you look at Superman, the Christopher Reeve Story, I've got to put that one at number 1. I mean, that thing swept up at the Critics' Choice Documentary Awards. They were nominated in 6 categories, and they won all 6 categories. Well, they tied Best Documentary with Will and Harper, but Will and Harper's not on this list. And you know what? The Oscars have a thing against celebrity biodocs, it seemed, this year. But everybody else critically has loved Superman. And I watched it, and it is a great documentary. However, I can kind of see what they're getting at maybe when it comes to true documentaries. The documentary branch at the Oscars can kind of be snobby, and they don't like stories about celebrities. So the documentary branch votes for the Oscars, and they don't like celebrity biodocs, I guess. But when it comes to things like the Producers Guild Association, they're exactly to me like the Critics' Choice Documentary branch. And so Superman, the Christopher Reeve Story, I've got winning. If maybe something beats it, it would be Porcelain War, only because, I mean, Jesus, like the thing is racking up critical accolades, including an Oscar nomination. So that would be the only one I would see upsetting it. To recap the PGA that I picked, I've got Anora winning, which I know is kind of crazy. And then I've got The Wild Robot against my heart. I know. I'm sorry, Flo. I'm sorry. And then I've got Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. But let's talk about the Writers Guild Association. So this is giving out awards in both the adaptive screenplay and the original screenplay. And guys, let me tell you, almost all of the top picks for screenplay were not eligible in the WGA because of the rules if it's produced outside of a binding contract agreement within the Producers Association, or it's produced like outside of the United States, they're not eligible. So that took a lot of the films that have been winning or that people thought were winning out of contention. So will this have an impact on the Oscars? I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see, because the writers are the ones that chose the nominees for the Oscars, but the entire Academy will choose the winners. So voting for the WGA ended on January 28th. So it definitely had like zero impact on any controversy. And oh wait, that's right. Amelia Perez wasn't even eligible to be in the adapted screenplay category. So good segue. Let's talk about the nominees for Best Adaptive Screenplay. The nominees for the WGA Adapted Screenplay are A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Hitman, Nickel Boys, Wicked. You might be saying, what? Those are the nominations? Like, what about Conclave? Like, Conclave won the Golden Globes. It won the Critics' Choice last night. It's probably going to win the Oscars, but guess what? Was not eligible because of the whole binding contract deal. Some other big films that weren't eligible, we just talked about Amelia Perez, but also Sing Sing, which was critically acclaimed and talked about, along with The Wild Robot, were not eligible in this category. So given what we're left with, I've got to go with Nickel Boys. I understand that Nickel Boys hasn't been getting other, big nominations out there. I mean, they kind of barely snuck into the Oscars and into BAFTA. But when it comes to who's voting in this one, which is writers, I think they're going to look at the Nickel Boys script, look at how it was written, how they took basically what could have been a documentary, made it into a feature film. And I think that they want to honor Nickel Boys. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't have won all the accolades prior to this that it did. So I've got Nickel Boys winning with Complete Unknown coming in second. A Complete Unknown just has been since its release. I mean, it does well, and then all of a sudden it drops off. It gets nominations, but it doesn't get wins. And so I'm thinking, when we're talking writing, I think that A Complete Unknown does have the edge over Wicked, because I think, unfortunately, which I'm actually surprised it got the nomination here, is that anytime when something goes from a book to a play to a movie, they tend not to really usually honor the screenplay so much. But I've got that coming in at 3, Dune Part 2 coming in at 4, and then Hitman is at 5. So again, though, we have to look at three of the biggest ones weren't even eligible this year, with the biggest one being Conclave. So you know what? Everybody who ends up getting nominated or wins in this category, Nickel Boys, be thankful that Conclave wasn't in this category for you. Next category we're going to talk about is Writing Original Screenplay. I'm going to give you the 3 big ones that are not eligible, that if they were, would totally have been in this list, and one of them would have won. You've been seeing them on other award shows, and you've also seen them nominated for Oscars, but they were not eligible when it came to WGA. And that is The Brutalist, The Substance, which won last night. I was so excited, yes. And then September 5. Now I get it, you're probably like, you think September 5 would have done well? Yes. Anybody will say, once you watch that movie and people get butts in seats, the movie is fabulous. And people said, even if it doesn't get any other Oscar nomination, it will get original screenplay, which it did. I have seen September 5 now. It's out on video on demand. I highly recommend renting or buying it. But yeah, not eligible in this category. So who does that leave us with for nominations? Here are the nominees for Best Original Screenplay per the WGA. A Real Pain, Anora, Challengers, Civil War, My Old Ass. Okay, I know you're going to say, Lisa, Challengers is out there. Justin Kurzek, you're totally going to pick Challengers. I can't, guys, not in this situation. I love that they got nominated, considering they got snubbed at the Oscars, but when it comes to looking at this category, dudes, you have to go with Sean Baker for Anora. I mean, let's be honest. He was predicted to actually be the one to win Best Original Screenplay last night at the Critics' Choice Awards, and he didn't. He lost to Coralie. Coralie is not here, so I think you got to give it to Anora. And if you don't give it to Anora, will the producers honor a guy who started out as an actor, who now acted, directed, produced, and starred in his own film, Jesse Eisenberg for A Real Pain? I don't know. That's the only one I could see beating Anora. And then at third, I do have my lovely movie Challengers, followed up by Civil War and My Old Ass. Despite My Old Ass having a campaign out there, they don't stand a chance in this category. But I mean, super job being nominated for as much as they have been this year. So that just says be on the lookout for that Maisie Stesky performer along with Megan Park in future directorial type films. But yeah, so there it is. I've got Anora winning. What do you guys think the likelihood of Anora winning is when it's up against The Substance and it comes to the Oscars? I mean, with this award season, I don't think anything anymore. Like, I partly think head, heart, but you know what? I'd love to know what you think. The last category that WGA does do nominations for is documentary. Now, I love documentaries. We all know that, right? But like, I don't know what WGA was on or what they look at, but first off, they only nominate 4, which I don't really fully understand. Like, it's kind of like BAFTA. Why did they only do 4 animated films? Then why in some categories do they do 6, some in 5? I don't know. If somebody knows how they determine the number of nominees, like, put it in comments. I'd love to know because I can't seem to find anything. And y'all know me, I love me some knowledge. That's my ADHD. I constantly love to just absorb knowledge, but okay, these 4, there is 0, and I mean 0 crossover with other award shows documentaries. Like, not a single one of them shows on the list. So what I had to go off of was seriously IMDb and looking at previous wins, previous nominations, and then reading about them and watching trailers. So the 4 nominees for documentary with WGA are Jim Henson, Idea Man, Kiss the Future, Martha, War Game. Well, let's just start out with the 2 of them that we've probably heard about, right? Jim Henson, Idea Man, and Martha. Martha's on Netflix, so more likely that people have seen it, okay? But when looking at wins and nominations, I mean, Jim Henson's Idea Man has won 5 Primetime Emmys, and then it's been nominated for 21 other type awards, including this one. Then you move on to the next one, Kiss the Future. There you've got 2 wins, 4 nominations, including this one. Then you have Martha, which is on Netflix, and it had only been nominated for one thing previously from, I think, Middleburg Film Festival, but it did win it. So here's its other nomination. Will it end up going 2 for 2? I don't think so. And the last one is War Game. The only nomination it's gotten all award season was the Writers Guild, but at least it got its nomination. Again, I would love to know what the heck the Writers Guild looks at when it comes to deciding what makes for a good writing. But yeah, when it comes down to it, I've got to give the win to Jim Henson, Idea Man. Coming in number 2, I've got Martha, only because it's more well-known, but obviously it's not more critically acclaimed. And so the next critically acclaimed one is my 3rd, which is Kiss the Future, followed by last place's War Games. So to recap my Writers Guild Association award winners, I've got Nickel Boys winning Adapted Screenplay. I have Anora winning Original Screenplay. And then I have Jim Henson, Idea Man winning Documentary. There it is, gang. My Guild Association predictions, right? Directors Guild, Producers Guild, Writers Guild. We got them all. Who are you guys picking? Put them in comments. Let me know. Make sure you like and subscribe and click the notification bell so you can find out when all my future videos drop. All of the films, all of the categories through my Oscar-obsessed ADHD point of view. Thanks for joining, and until next time.